those roots go even further back in history. The US Supreme Court Historical Society has calculated that Magna Carta is cited in at least 160 Supreme Court cases since 1789, not least as the foundation of the principle that executive power is subject to checks and balances.
Did King Charles just subtly call out US President Donald Trump on American soil? That's the question exploding online after the British monarch delivered a historic address to the US Congress, and one particular line instantly triggered a political firestorm. Speaking to lawmakers during his first US state visit as king, Charles struck a diplomatic tone, highlighting what he called times of great uncertainty, while emphasizing the deep-rooted ties between the United Kingdom and the United States. For all that time, our destinies as nations have been interlinked, he said, drawing warm applause across the chamber. But it was what came next that set social media ablaze. In a section referencing legal traditions shared by both nations, Charles pointed to the historical influence of the Magna Carta on American law, noting how the US Supreme Court has cited it in over 160 cases. Then came the line now going viral, and within seconds, cameras captured a visible reaction, with several Democratic leaders, including Chuck Schumer, rising to applaud enthusiastically.
Has calculated that Magna Carta is cited in at least 160 Supreme Court cases since 1789, not least as the foundation of the principle that executive power is subject to checks and balances.
And this is when the internet did what it does best. Users across X quickly framed the remark as a not-so-subtle jab at President Trump. Some quipped that Charles just whammied Trump. Others claimed the monarch had perfectly timed his words, especially given the current political climate. The timing is key. Charles's speech came amid heightened tensions between Washington and London, particularly over foreign policy disagreements tied to the Iran conflict and NATO commitments. Trump has recently criticized UK leadership, including Prime Minister Keir Starmer, escalating friction between the allies. The King's visit is designed to reinforce that very relationship, as the US approaches its 250th anniversary and both nations navigate a rapidly shifting geopolitical landscape. But moments like this show how fragile that balance can be. However, it is notable that there's no direct evidence that Charles intended the remark as a political attack. In fact, references to Magna Carta and constitutional balance are standard themes in royal diplomacy, often used to highlight shared democratic values rather than criticize sitting leaders. But context matters. This was the first time a British monarch addressed Congress since Queen Elizabeth II in 1991. Making every word, every pause, and every reaction subject to intense scrutiny. And in today's hyper-polarized environment, even a historical reference can quickly be reinterpreted as a political statement.
With the spirit of 1776 in our minds, we can perhaps agree that we do not always agree, at least in the first instance. Indeed, the very principle on which your Congress was founded, no taxation without representation, was at once a fundamental disagreement between us, and at the same time a shared democratic value which you inherited from us. Ours is a partnership born out of dispute, but no less strong for it. So perhaps in this example, we can discern that our nations are in fact instinctively like-minded, a product of the common democratic, legal, and social traditions in which our governance is rooted to this day. Drawing on these values and traditions, time and again, our two countries have always found ways to come together. And by Jove, Mr. Speaker, when we have found that way to agree, what great change is brought about, not just for the benefit of our peoples, but of all peoples. This, I believe, is the special ingredient in our relationship. As President Trump himself observed during his state visit to Britain last autumn, the bond of kinship and identity between America and the United Kingdom is priceless and eternal. It is irreplaceable and unbreakable. Mr. Speaker, this is by no means my first visit to Washington, D.C., the capital of this great republic. It is, in fact, my 20th visit to the United States and my first as King and head of the Commonwealth. This is a city which symbolizes a period in our shared history, or what Charles Dickens might have called a tale of two Georges. The first president, George Washington, and my 5 times great-grandfather, King George III. King George, as you know, never set foot in America, and please rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, I am not here as part of some cunning rearguard action. The founding fathers were bold and imaginative rebels with a cause. 250 years ago, or as we say in the United Kingdom, just the other day, they declared independence. By balancing contending forces and drawing strength into diversity, they united 13 disparate colonies to forge a nation on the revolutionary idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They carried with them and carried forward the great inheritance of the British Enlightenment, as well as the ideals which had an even deeper history in English common law and Magna Carta. These roots run deep, and they are still vital. Our Declaration of Rights of 1689 was not only the foundation of our constitutional monarchy, but also provided the source of so many of the principles reiterated, often verbatim, in the American Bill of Rights of 1791. And those roots go even further back in history. The US Supreme Court Historical Society has calculated that Magna Carta is cited in at least 160 Supreme Court cases since 1789, not least as the foundation of the principle that executive power is subject to checks and balances.